Are you really getting the support you need, or are people just ignoring it until it becomes a problem? Well, that's around about what we're going to be fearlessly questioning this week on the show with Chase Reeves as we fearlessly question. I can't wait for it. I've wanted to do this show pretty much since I started the thing, acceptance versus tolerance. And this is an idea that I don't know, I've had in my head for a long time. And I think it's something that we confuse for one another all the time or very often. And it drives me nuts when, one, we don't realize that it's happening, and two, that we don't really have the guts to call it out when we see it. Obviously, because most of the time it's with somebody that's close to us, a family member or whatever. But anyways, on this show, we're talking about doing things different, doing something that maybe isn't what you would expect, making a change that people have a hard time understanding. And when you make those changes, because people don't think the same way or rank it with the same amount of importance, then they don't really understand and they don't really want it to be, they don't have as much tolerance for it as you do. And if it's somebody that, let's say a spouse or a significant other or any other family members, if it's something that, gets in the way of them doing something else or interferes in their kind of overall vision and goals and things like that, then there's going to be a problem. There's going to be a conflict. And I have experience firsthand with this. So that's kind of why, one of the reasons that I brought it up. This might be a close cousin relative to a show we did, Fearlessly Questioning, doing it together with my good friends Mark and Amy Bailey. I believe it was episode 24. And, it's all about the idea of getting support and people to buy in. Because if they don't, the thing that you're going to do is only going to be even harder, I should say, than if you don't get this. So the reason that I bring up this whole acceptance versus tolerance thing is that, when we kind of present these ideas, these crazy ideas, we say, we're going to do this. It's only going to take that much time. It's not going to cost this much money. This is what's going to go. This is how it's going to work. And you've probably, seen yourself, let's say if you've ventured into any of these things and you have people that you need to kind of get permission, so to speak, you've probably found yourself having these conversations. And I find that, one of two things is going to happen. One, they're just going to accept it and they're going to fully embrace it and they're going to help you, or they're just going to tolerate it. And I think this is where people, they want to confuse tolerance for acceptance. And because somebody is just letting something happen does not mean that they're accepting it, they're embracing it, they're actually, helping make it real. And I guess where I would really draw the line is tolerance is when you just get out of the way. Let's say, what's a good example here? If somebody's like, let's take the Spider-Man example. So from the very first Spider-Man movie, he walks in, the dude's robbing the promoter. They just, fought the wrestling match. The dude robs the promoter, and he just kind of steps out of the way. Bad example, crime, but go with me here. So anyways, he just kind of stepped aside and let it happen, right? Tolerated it. He didn't really accept it. He didn't participate. He didn't help. He didn't say anything one way or the other. And that's kind of what happens when somebody tolerates, one of your ideas or what, something you want to do. They get out of the way. At least they say they're going to get out of the way. Maybe they do for the most of the time. But as soon as it becomes a problem, as soon as there's a little bit of friction there with anything else, where they can't get out of the way, where they're unable to dodge it, that's when you will know for sure that it's tolerance, because they're only tolerating it to a certain extent. And Chase, and why we're talking, I guess I should probably say why we're talking about it with Chase. And Chase is co-founder of a company called Fizzle.co. It's an online community membership where they build resources and education materials for people that want to do work online. So, similar stuff here. And their show, the Fizzle Show, it's a podcast, great podcast. They often will talk about the impact that it has just beyond the actual tips, tactics, and things that you actually have to do, and how you really need to get everything on the same page, and how it spills over into your personal life, and getting those people on board. And I think Chase is going to be perfect for this because, one, this has potential to be one of the most entertaining episodes in show history, so I'm looking forward to it from that standpoint. But I think Chase is going to have tons to say about this. But getting back to my point on the whole acceptance versus tolerance thing, and why I get so fired up about it, is because we even do it to ourselves too. It's like, we will tolerate something to a certain threshold, and then once it does, once we get that friction, then we're out. It's just like, I've pushed my limit. I don't understand it. You've got so much invested, you've worked so hard, you've gotten to a certain point. And getting back to a little bit, talking about that other person accepting or tolerating. And when you've received true acceptance, that's when, that person should, at least in my opinion, be helping you succeed and keeping you on task. They're accepting it. They know that this is something that's important to you, and they want to make sure that you stick to it. So not are they not getting out of the way, they're getting in your way when you're not doing what you said you were going to do. And they're helping you achieve something that they know is important, or that you've at least said that was important. So let's take fitness as another example. So oftentimes in relationship, one person wants to be healthy and the other person does not. Okay, and that's a problem because the person that's trying to be healthy is trying to do all these things that to make their life better, to be better, to be healthier. The person that isn't, they don't care. It's not that important. They don't support the time that is needed to make those things happen, be it working out, be it eating right. So there's, the stuff in the house that they want to eat. There's the time that they don't want to set aside. But then, obviously if you have other obligations, like let's say kids, and you want to go work out, and that person, is stuck watching the kids, there's resentment there. And then there's resentment on your end because then, you're continually watching them just not fuel themselves with the right stuff, not putting the right stuff in their bodies. Possibly, that other person in the relationship might, then constantly complain about how, they are not, they don't have the energy, they're tired all the time. And all of these things, we know that, for the people that are, in shape and work out, those are all symptoms of not taking care of yourself. But yet, when you approach that subject and try and get that acceptance, that's where it breaks down. So in a perfect world, this acceptance versus tolerance, what needs to happen then is instead of that person asking for permission to get that workout in or to do whatever, that other person should know how important it is and make sure that it happens regardless. It's okay, well, hey, let me go take the kids out for an hour and I know you can go get your workout in, or whatever it is, as opposed to just saying, can I squeeze this in? There needs to be an exchange of actions, information, and support two ways. It's not just, letting it go one way. It's got to come back the other way. And that's why I think we trick ourselves into thinking people have accepted what we want to do simply by tolerating it. And I've come to kind of become really upset with tolerance because it is this kind of Trojan horse, this evil thing that we aren't really aware of all the time. And it is disguised as other things so often that, we feel that if we can just get tolerance, then that's all we need. And we're happy with it, which is kind of weird and disgusting in a kind of crazy way. And that's what I hope we're going to be getting out of this from Chase, and some of the things that he's learned from the people that he's worked with, is how to understand what the differences are, and not only understand them, but how to get acceptance a little more easily. That's something that's hard to do because we've explored this idea from a lot of different angles. I can't remember the show number. It might have been 18, where we fearlessly questioned making it your idea with Lisa Ingalls, and that's all about the more we try and force our kind of opinions and things on people, our thoughts and our ways, it only backfires. And ultimately, for true change to happen, it needs to be that person's idea to do it. And obviously, again, that's easier said than done. And I don't know that anybody's got a perfect answer, because if they did, they would be a pretty wealthy person. So we're just going to continue down that rabbit hole. This is just another step in that progression. And I think hopefully should be one of the bigger ones in this conversation, because we often forget to bring those people that are most important to us on the ride for this. And I've talked to a lot of people that you'd be surprised that they're big into all this stuff online. They put out all this content, and the person that they care most about really isn't all that interested. They don't read their stuff. It doesn't make sense to them. They don't particularly care. They would rather do anything else other than pay attention to whatever it is they're doing online. And it seems to be common. So it must be this whole opposites attract thing. But it still feels like there's a big divide there that sits. And I think if we can close that, and not necessarily close it, but just, again, trade the tolerance for the acceptance and see where it gets us. I guess that if we could do anything, that would be it. Of course, as always, if you have your own questions, show up live to the show and you can ask it to Chase. We're going to pick the best one out of the audience. If somebody is brave enough, we've really rarely found people brave enough to come on the show. It's your opportunity to connect with these people and shape the conversation whichever way you want. So feel free to do that. There will be a link below if you're watching this video on YouTube to click through to the event to join us live. Again, that's the tip of the sword. That's where the most passionate, engaged people want to come and hang out and really get the most out of that conversation. Of course, if you're listening on the podcast, well, we're going to take it any way that we can get it, and I know that your time is valuable. And honestly, it doesn't matter. If you're catching it after the fact, yes, you're still going to get a ton out of it. But, obviously I'm providing you an opportunity to, not only shape the conversation, but make a connection to somebody that is relatively important, has a lot to say and offer. So feel free to take me up on that, because not tons of people do. Of course, as always, if you are getting anything out of these shows, remember we have a 3-part kind of delivery system here. So what we're listening to right now is kind of my take, my rant for the week. And then, of course, what comes after that is then the guests' rant, where they have the opportunity to talk about this topic that we're discussing, or they can kind of go through door number 2 and really choose anything that they want to talk about that they don't get a chance to fearlessly question, if you will. And then finally, we have the whole full show, which is the 3rd and final installment, to where it's actually the live conversation with both of us, and that's where all the good stuff happens. So that's kind of the 3-part attack that we have going here. And then if you're not yet subscribed on the newsletter, to the email list, to whatever you want to call it, not a member of the Fearless Files, all of that good stuff, that's where the final piece takes place. And that's every Sunday, where we get to recap what actually happened. My biggest takeaway, what I actually felt was the most important thing that came out of that conversation. And most of the time, it's not even something that we discussed. It's just I give the dirt on what I was thinking, my thoughts and reactions on the conversation, and the most important thing that you can actually take action on and get some results from. So if you haven't done that, fearlesslyquestioning.com is the place to do that. And I really appreciate you to take the time, hop on. Would love for you to join that conversation as well. But for now, I will get out of here. We're going to be back with Chase. Hope to see you guys there. Again, I'm Joey Giangola. Take it easy, everybody.